It's a Sunday morning, sometime in the 1950s, and you can hear Maxwell Street before you can see it. 3 blocks off, it's already a wall of sound. Thousands of voices haggling in Yiddish and Italian and Spanish and English, a man barking prices off the back of a truck, and underneath all of it, cutting clean through, an electric guitar plugged into an extension cord that runs out of a storefront, turned up past the point of distortion. You round the corner onto Halsted, and the smell hits you. Grilled onions and Polish sausage, fish, exhaust, fried everything. The street is a river of people, 20,000 of them on a good Sunday, flowing between push carts and card tables and blankets thrown on the pavement, selling socks, hubcaps, live chickens, used tools, new suits, single shoes, anything a person could carry and sell. One writer called it an amusement park you didn't have to pay to get into. Every square inch of what I just described is gone. There's a university parking structure on part of it now. And this is the story of how Chicago decided that the single most important street in its history was gone and bulldozed it. Because here's the thing about Maxwell Street. They tried to replace it. They literally built a thing and called it the new Maxwell Street Market, and it couldn't be done for reasons worth sitting with. It began around 1880 with Jewish immigrants fleeing the pogroms of Russia, Poland, and Romania, who landed on Chicago's near west side with nothing and needed a way to eat. So they sold out of push carts from the front rooms of their rented cottages and on the bare sidewalk, and the selling grew until in 1912, the city made it official by ordinance. A Sunday market centered at Maxwell and Halsted, running south from Roosevelt Road. They called it the Ellis Island of the Midwest, and the name was exact. This was the place where you arrived in America with empty hands and 10 words of English and turned a pushcart into a stall into a storefront into a family that made it. At its peak, it sprawled across 9 city blocks and was called the largest open-air market in the world. The old line, and on Maxwell Street, it was only half a joke, was that you could have the hubcaps stripped off your car at one end and buy them back at the other. The faces changed as the decades turned. Jewish, then Italian and Greek, then black, then Mexican. But the deal never did. Maxwell Street was where Chicago's newest and poorest people came to climb, and then it gave the world something nobody planned. The market started out sounding like klezmer, the music the Jewish immigrants carried over from Eastern Europe. But after the First World War, the Great Migration began pulling hundreds of thousands of black Southerners north to Chicago, and they brought the Delta blues with them. They came to Maxwell Street to play because it was the one place where the largest number of people would hear you, and immediately they hit a wall. You could not be heard, not over 20,000 hagglers and a man selling chickens. So they ran a cord into a friendly storefront, plugged in, and turned up with electric guitar and harmonica amplified past the point of distortion for no grander reason than to cut through the noise. That was the birth of amplified Chicago blues on a market street by accident, because acoustic was not loud enough to sell over. Muddy Waters and Little Walter plugged in here. Howlin' Wolf, Bo Diddley, Coco Taylor, and Hound Dog Taylor, who turned up on Maxwell Street in 1940, fresh off the train from Natchez, Mississippi, at 23 years old. He told the writer Ira Burkow that a band could clear $120 on a single Sunday morning working the market. Back home in Mississippi, he had been making 75 cents a day picking cotton. That sound, the Maxwell Street sound, fed straight into Chess Records a few blocks away. And out of Chess it went to the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin, and very nearly the whole back half of the 20th century. A flea market for broke immigrants quietly invented the soundtrack of the modern world. It invented dinner, too. In 1939, A Macedonian named Jimmy Stefanovic landed in New York with $7 in his pocket, made his way to Chicago, and took over his aunt's hot dog stand on the corner of Maxwell and Halsted. Within a few years, he had built something new on that griddle, a fat grilled sausage heaped with caramelized onions and mustard and sport peppers, and called it the Maxwell Street Polish. A Macedonian immigrant inventing the Maxwell Street Polish on a Jewish market street in a black and Mexican neighborhood. There is no more Chicago sentence than that one. By 1980, the street was famous enough that the opening of the Blues Brothers dropped John Lee Hooker right into the middle of it, playing Boom Boom on the pavement outside Nate's Deli. Muddy Waters himself was meant to be there for the shoot. He was too sick to make it. And right around then, the machine that would erase all of it was already running. Its name was the University of Illinois at Chicago. Mayor Richard J. Daley, the boss, had championed planting the campus on the near west side, and when it opened in 1965, the construction had already flattened a stretch of the surrounding immigrant neighborhood. Then came the paperwork. In 1966, the city officially declared the Maxwell Street area slum and blighted. In 1967, the University of Illinois at Chicago was handed the power of eminent domain over it, and then sat on that power for years, letting the buildings rot and the property values sink until knocking the place down would look less like a demolition and more like a kindness. The end came in two strokes. On August 28, 1994, the city of Chicago shut the market at its historic site, where even in decline, 800 vendors and 20,000 shoppers still showed up on a Sunday and shoved it a few blocks east to Canal Street, rebranded as the new Maxwell Street Market. A Roosevelt University economics professor named Steve Balkin led a coalition that fought to save the actual street, to win it protection as a historic district. They lost. In 2002, the last of the old buildings came down to clear ground for the University of Illinois' $525 million South Campus expansion, this time under Mayor Richard M. Daley, the boss's son. Over the bones of the market, they raised dorms and shops and named it University Village. Nate's Deli, the one from the movie, had closed in 1994 and was rubble by 1995. Here is why the new Maxwell Street Market was always going to be a headstone with the wrong name carved on it. The thing that made the old market matter was the very thing the city condemned as blight. 100 years of strangers with nothing, packed shoulder to shoulder into 9 unregulated blocks, improvising food and music and whole American lives out of pure noise. The blues was not born at a sanctioned event with assigned stalls and a permit window. It was born because the place was too loud, too crowded, too desperate, and too free. You can relocate vendors, you can hand out numbered spaces and print a list of rules. What you cannot relocate is 100 years of accident, and the accident was the entire product. There's a coda. In 2024, the city quietly moved the market back to Maxwell and Halsted, onto its real corner, this time with the university's blessing. And Jim's original Stefanovic stand outlasted the whole ordeal, still grilling the Polish a couple of blocks away. So you can stand on the right corner again, and you can still get the sandwich. But the street that taught Chicago how to be Chicago, the one where you could walk in with $7 and walk out with a recipe, a record deal, or just a country, that one they paved for a parking structure and a genuinely good university. They moved Maxwell Street twice and renamed it once. The only thing they could never work out how to move was the reason anyone loved it.